The reason he got famous is because he was like, I can't predict the future. He goes out and predicts the future way too much.
This is not a Dalio thing, but I got an email. The subject line was, prepare yourself for the stock market crash on December 3rd.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Welcome back to Skippy and Doogles Talk Investing. SkippyDoogles.com for all your Skippy Doogles needs. And we got some listener mail today. You can hit us with the listener mail at skippydoogles@gmail.com. Today was one of the most fiery and longest pre-show meetings we've had. Apologies to everybody, because we just talked for a good 30 minutes about some glory, but we didn't hit the record button yet because it wasn't time. It just wasn't time. But we still got more things for y'all today. We still got more. We're going to start off with talking about what is the real poverty line, this piece that's been going around for the last week or so. We're going to discuss Ray Dalio and his recent warning, and wrap it up with the listener mail that I mentioned before about the untold story of Charlie Munger's final years, this Wall Street Journal piece.
No, we're going to do some other things. First is...
Sorry. Wow.
We're coming off Black Friday, rolling into Cyber Monday. What is a good discount, Doogles? What's enough of a discount that gets you excited, that gets your purchase intent going?
It depends on what the item is, but I like half. When you get to the half point, I get super excited.
The reason I want to talk to you about this is, to me, like 10% seems outrageously insulting to me. There's
10%?
lots of people going around with 10%
10%?
Right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
okay.
you think I'm going to buy it for 10% off?
You're basically saying, like, I'll cover your sales tax. No, thank you.
You know what my favorite discount is? This is going to surprise you as a deep value investor. 0%. My product is good. Deal with it. That's how Black Friday should work. Because it's right. It's either I can get excited 35 to 50% off, but I actually get more excited 0% off. We make great stuff that is in high demand. You know what? There should be a company that raises their prices on Black Friday. We're so good. Okay. You should pay us more money.
There was. It's not around anymore.
Yeah? Who was it?
I don't know. I'm just saying there probably was, and it no longer exists.
The reason I mention this is in the past we have done some Black Friday, Cyber Monday promotions on premium subscriptions.
Oh, that's true. We have.
Should we do that this year?
You're saying to raise the price on premium subscriptions?
No.
Oh, we could. Should we do that?
Should we?
I'm down.
Give people a break.
Let's do it. Why not?
I think we're going to be 40% off, guys. 40% off. Yeah.
Like 6 month or what? How long is that?
6 month term. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. There it is. Love it. SkippyDoogles@supercast.com.
All because of you, Doogles. I was going to raise the price, but
if you get in limited time offer, you can pay twice as much.
You can
pay before.
If you can send us an email if you want to pay 3 times as much. I know it has 3 times as much value as we charge. So
I was super excited because I just got 2 pairs of Hokas for the price of 1.
Boo.
For the price of 1. It was magical. I have to replace my Hokas every few months. This gets me to like halfway through next year already. Pretty phenomenal.
Listen, so I bring everything back to investing, which you know already. Did you know I own part of the New York Knicks? Have you ever heard that before?
No, never heard it. Not one time.
Okay. Nike now has a maximum comfort Hoka competitor that is pretty fire. Watch out. You should pick some of those up.
I'm good. Thank you.
I think they're called the Voermo 18s.
Noka.
Great.
Call it Noka.
Noka.
Just get right to it.
But I think I figured out why Decker's stock is down 50% from all-time highs, because they're selling shoes 2 for 1 over there. I mean, talk about a horrible Black Friday. They're giving away their product.
That math works out quite well.
Yeah.
I don't know why our sales are down.
I figured it out.
Okay, should we talk about the real poverty line?
I want to talk about, yes, do I ever? There is a controversial article going around, written by Michael green. And it's not right. It's not right at all. There's all sorts of problems with the math. There's been 7 rebuttal pieces. You guys can go on X and follow all the debate if you want. We'll give you a little bit of that. There are some really interesting, really compelling points, and I want to talk through some of those things. So in this piece, he argues that some people will say the poverty line is about $31,000 today. Then he calculates it from scratch with some reasonable but wrong assumptions and says it's $140,000. I think that's why the piece has generated so much debate. That's what we're going to do for you here. I think it's pretty clear that it's not $31,000, although it might be in the right community in Mississippi or something, but nationwide. And I think it's pretty clear that it's not $140,000 either. But here's the eye-opening thing that as I'm reading through this for the first time, I go, what? I literally like screaming at my phone. What? Okay, so the folklore goes that back in 1963?
Yeah, I think it was 1963. I think that's right.
In early 60s. There is a formula developed by this lady called Molly Orshansky, who is an economist, sometimes I struggle with that word, at the Social Security Administration. And she observes that for people living near the poverty line, food is about 1/3 of their budget.
Yep.
This becomes this rough rule of thumb. It's really tough to gauge exactly all the costs that are happening near the poverty line for your typical family. So this rule of thumb becomes kind of the standard for the poverty line is we'll calculate how much food costs, we'll multiply it times 3. That pretty much still exists today. So in 1963, I'm going to trust his research here. Healthcare was about $10 a month. There was no market for childcare because often mothers stayed home. And I was trying to get a rough breakdown of housing, but housing is significantly less expensive. That's the important point here.
Yep.
So the article goes on to argue, hey, that 3x, based on how things have evolved with the rapid increases in health costs, in housing, and childcare, is more like a 16x, a 14x. You know, like food is now 1/14 of the typical budget, or 1/16. Yeah, if the poverty line is still calculated on this 1/3 assumption from 1963, we are drastically underweighting the poverty line. I think that's interesting. I'll pause before we talk about what that ultimately means.
Don't keep going. I want you to keep going.
Okay. So then he goes into the math. Like I mentioned, this isn't perfect. It's far from perfect. But he says, okay, so if you're a average, typical, however you want to call it, family these days,
yep,
you probably have 2 working adults, and we're going to run some numbers on a family with 2 young kids, right? Basically, he's trying to be, like, again, average here, even though average doesn't exist. And he says, so your costs today look like maybe $15,000 for food, but $24,000 for housing, $32,000 for childcare, which is wildly high. It's actually more like $10,000 to $15,000. Transportation might be $14,000. Healthcare could be $10,000. On and on. This is how he gets to the $140,000. Now, I'll point out a few fallacies with this. One, I already mentioned, childcare seems unrealistic. Housing is very realistic depending on which market you're in. But this really assumes family income. So, like, this would be if you're 2 earners, you're probably not talking about the $30,000 household income anyway, right? It'd be kind of difficult to pull that off for the type of family he's describing here, which is not the type of family that lives on the poverty line.
And this is where the words here matter a lot. Some of the words invoke pictures, images that may be different than what the reality of that situation is. So let me be less abstract here. The word poverty, or the word, like he titles the section you were just reading from, is called The Real Math of Survival. The implication for me when I read that is if someone spends less than this, they are basically dead.
Yes.
Right? Like that's what the word...
they are not surviving.
Yeah, they are not surviving. And what I think he's calculating here is the average cost of spending that people could have within the U.S. close-ish to kind of not even the minimum, but close to the average minimum, whatever that means. And that's different than poverty. It's different than survival. And he even calls it, when he goes through those numbers, he says, using conservative national average data. Those two things can't go together. And so that's what ends up being tough. And you mentioned like the math issues. And I wouldn't even fault him for writing this piece. Like this data is like, it's a really interesting way to look at it. It's just the fact that these words end up meaning very different things to different people. And I recently read this piece. It's not the first time someone's written this piece like this by a long shot, but I recently read this like really short blog post someone wrote about the difference between being poor and being broke.
Ooh, tell me about it.
Yeah. So the baseline is that if you're broke, it's more of a temporary situation. It's like I don't have enough money today to buy the thing that I want to buy today. I feel broke. Poor, it's like there is not a light at the end of the tunnel in which I will ever have the amount of money to do that. Right? That doesn't mean that it will never happen, but there isn't line of sight to it. Like it's more of like a state of being versus just a current financial state. And when he uses like poverty survival, it gets more to the poor realm. But I think that what these numbers are is like if you make less than the amount that he stated on average, you will probably feel broke. Not you will be poor or you will be in poverty. And there's such a fine line. And this is like, a lot of this is more geographically focused. It's hard, like, it's really tough to talk about this in aggregate, but I do think that that's the difference, even though it's a little bit abstract.
I think those are really good points. And the wording around this is tough, and I don't think it's handled great. I actually want to take the foundation from the piece, but leave the piece behind. So now I just want to talk to you. Where he goes next with the piece is kind of trying to explain the difference between someone making $30K and someone making $140,000, and as their income grows between those two thresholds, how they could be making substantially more money but not feel significantly richer. So that's an interesting point, because the data seems to be proving this out, that there are even people making north of 100K or households making north of 100K that feel like they're on this endless treadmill of never catching the big break, right? And so that family would very clearly be defined as middle class by basically all statistics. But his point is, as your income grows, the safety nets from the government evaporate, which of course they do, and new costs arise, whether that's childcare or increased housing costs or whatever. To me, this is what I think both of our political parties are trying to get a hold on right now. And the fixes are just so obvious to me. And so I bet you didn't think I was going to go this way. But a huge portion of costs, a huge portion of your average family's costs are childcare, housing, healthcare, right? If I was president tomorrow, I would enact policies that bring down those costs. My goal would be to cut all those costs in half. If you did that, do you know how meaningful? I mean, you want to talk about like a fruitful decade, even with the stock market at high valuations and stuff. If you cut all those costs in half, and I think it's doable. We could talk about why if you really want to go down the rabbit hole of my presidential platform. But that is where all the focus should be. Shouldn't be anywhere else.
I was in New York a couple weeks ago, and one of the takeaways I had from being there briefly, I was there for a couple days. I've been in New York a lot, but it like really hit me this last time I was there, was the day-to-day stuff I was doing did not cost all that much. It was cheaper than my life in Denver. Like when I went to go grab lunch, it was cheaper. If I wanted to grab a beer, it was cheaper, which I did. And all those things were cheaper. But I know if I walked into one of these buildings and tried to get an apartment, it would crush me. And so that's why you just mentioned those three categories you just mentioned, because that's where the big hit is. This brings me back to when I was living in California. It was when at some point Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor when I was in California, and I went to some talk that he had, and I don't remember all the detail, but he was talking about water, access to water, and said some version of The Republicans are saying the Democrats are dumb because of how they want to increase water. The Democrats are saying the Republicans are idiots because of how they want to increase water. He goes, meanwhile, we have no water. Yeah. And I feel like that's the same thing that is occurring right now. There's a lot of like slap fighting that's occurring, but no one's just saying like, not no one. The aggregate like direction that's being pushed is not solving the three core problems. Like instead of like, we both agree, both being like both parties have stated they agree that affordability is a crisis. Cool. Work together and solve it. Instead of calling each other idiots around how they're like trying to solve it, quote unquote, trying to solve it. Anyway, all right, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, but it's fair, right? So I'm going to talk briefly about a few of these things.
Yeah,
housing. Make a federal policy that allows permitting of new housing within certain core guidelines, automatically approved in 2 weeks, right?
Yep.
Build twice as many houses, the cost of housing gets cut in half. It's pretty simple math. All right. Childcare. I don't care. I don't care how you do it, but you tell me if someone's current child care bill is $20,000 and you find a way to make it $10,000, whether that's through government subsidies or something else. Yep. Do you think they're really that $10,000 annual savings? Do you think they're really like going to spend that additional money in bad ways? Do you think that's going to hurt the economy for a family raising 2 children to have $10,000? Yep. No, it's going to really help their neighbors and their communities. It's easy. Healthcare, it's easy. I mean, find a way to get rid of all the administrators, all the non-doctors that are like 80% of the workforce. Eliminate that. Streamline insurance. It's not hard. It's really, really not
Maybe
hard.
Even just streamlining insurance is the way to make that happen.
Get rid of the pharmacy benefit matters. I mean, we can go to the Mark Cuban talking points here. Again, everyone that listens to the show knows I hate talking about politics, but have laser focus on those 3 items, regardless of which party you like. You will win the elections, and you will revive the economy in a way that is so incredibly meaningful. It prolongs the bubble popping, for sure. Yeah. You know, all the Silicon Valley crowd is going to tell me that you can cut all these things with implementation of AI. I don't care how you do it. Just cut the price in half, all right?
AI is just a tool. It's not like exactly. a magic like bean. I just finished the book 1929. Andrew Ross Sorkin book. Did you finish it?
I haven't started yet, but I will.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. But here's what I describe it as this. I thought it seemed pretty well researched. I'm just going to assume that because also it's Andrew Ross Sorkin. Seemed pretty well researched. There was a lot of interesting stuff that I didn't know about that period. It really goes from like the mid 20s to the late 30s is really the time period that it covers fully, but it's all around the 1929 crash. Thought all that was interesting. But what really hit me in this time is if you take FDR and all the New Deal, I'll throw all his stuff under the New Deal. Like the amount of what you just described was happening at that point. It was like, here are the 5 things that we need to solve, and let's go after them aggressively. And you can disagree with how he did it. You can disagree with a lot of that stuff, but it was what you were discussing, and a lot of the foundation of what we have today, whether you like them or not, came from that time period. This is when Social Security came about. This is when FDIC insurance came about. All the second half of the Glass-Steagall stuff came like during this time to protect markets. Like a lot of that came because they were like, here are the issues that are facing the country that we need to solve in the future. So it was just interesting given this conversation, what occurred at that period of time.
I think that laser focus is really underrated. Just literally, instead of saying, we are going to address these 200 issues, it's to say, no, we have 3 to 5 things. That's all we care about. And we're going to cut the price in half of those things. Have you heard of Henry J. Kaiser?
Yes. I know his foundation.
I mean, it reminds me of that time. For those who don't know, fascinating individual who did everything from build roads in Canada to help build the Hoover Dam to found Kaiser Permanente. Like, that's the type of person. But when you describe the 1929 book, I don't even know if it's related. His biographies talk a little bit about how he got involved in these things, and he's just following opportunity. Like in the 30s, they needed stuff built, and he was like, I can figure out how to build a company that will do this, and I can be smart about dealing with Washington. This is how partly how Kaiser Permanente gets started, is because he knows how to deal with the Washington apparatus. But he turns contracts from $2 million to $10 million to hundreds of millions of dollars, and becomes like this monument of the Western United States that just built something. He built ships for World War II, if memory serves. Like, incredible dude. And that's where I go back to the cost piece, is like, put some bids out to say, this is what childcare costs today. We want a economically based solution that cuts that in half. Tell us how it's done. Win the contract. We'll write you checks.
If you go to I'm going to overly simplify the time period, but let's say like pre-World War II era in the U.S., let's say the 100 years before then, and you look at the people that amassed the most wealth, the amount of financial backing and influence they had over the building of the nation was pretty fascinating. It was maybe not instead of, but I'm going to say instead of, because I think it's directionally correct. Instead of having Bezos, or the Bezos equivalent, I'm not really picking on him in particular, getting the $400 million mansion. Again, I'm making that up, but like instead of doing that, they actually like create a university, or you would
You're talking
build
about Vanderbilt here, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Well, that's actually Rockefeller as well, both of them, because you had Rockefeller created Spelman. Like, when you think about Spelman College, a women's black college.
I didn't know that was Rockefeller. That's cool.
Rockefeller. Like John D. Rockefeller. These are the kinds of things that folks did. J.P. Morgan, like not the company, but John Pierpont, whatever his name was, Morgan.
You got it right.
Like he was the one that backed the banks in the early 20th century, like in the 1904, 1905. Like it was him. That would be the equivalent of Elon Musk being like, all right, actually, here's what I'm going to do with the $1 trillion that I have. There's a difference, and I think it's probably a difference in government size, maybe, et cetera, that like has to do with this. But it's just interesting looking at the things that individual people that built wealth did back then.
Yes, I'm stepping down off my soapbox now, and you can hop into the fishbowl.
All right, sounds good. Okay, next up in the fishbowl, Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio, Bridgewater fame. He started that back in the 1970s. It became the world's largest hedge fund. He's worth tens of billions of dollars, something like that. I don't know the exact amount. He had an interview with The Street recently, and the title of this piece, first, let's just go ahead and clickbait title. Legendary investor Ray Dalio drops most shocking take on the stock market. What I'm about to say is not the most shocking take on the stock market, but there are a couple points that I think are worth bringing up and raising and discussing here. I think that the points are not shocking, but I do think they're interesting. One thing he states, according to his long-term models, we're 80% of the way into the bubble. So he goes, yeah, we're not getting to the bubble. We're in the bubble, but we're only 80% of the way there, so don't sell your stuff.
I mean, this guy, he, all his books are like, oh, well, this is the exact date that America is going to go bankrupt. Like, he, for someone who is famous for the all-weather portfolio, which for those who don't know, basically takes a bunch of assets and tries to just give them equal risk so you can make less money, but make less money consistently, right? The whole investing model, the reason he got famous is because he was like, I can't predict the future. He goes out and predicts the future way too much. Drives me crazy.
This is not a Dalio thing, but I got an email, I think it was on Thursday, that the subject line was prepare yourself for the stock market crash on December 3rd. I was like, wait, Wednesday? like you're telling me next Wednesday? Like that's so specific. Anyway, all right. Then he discusses how he's like valuations are high, but valuations are not the thing that's going to make a bubble pop. Earnings are not the thing that's going to make a bubble pop. And this is what I do think is important for folks to keep in mind, although it's not most shocking. The need for cash is what causes a bubble to pop. The point of saying that, going outside of Dalio, but I think the point of saying that is important because you can have earnings, companies miss earnings, bubbles don't necessarily pop. You can have expansion of ratios, PE ratio, et cetera, over time. Bubble doesn't necessarily pop. But it's the point where folks are like, I actually need the money that I have, because you have to sell stock in order for them to go down. I need the money that I have in the stock market. That's one way. Or I have debt that people are telling me I need to give them the money because there's a margin call or something along those lines. And I think that point is really the core of what I think could be worth discussing here, is that cash point.
I'm nonplussed by that point. He's saying the same, like he's just using different terminology. Yes, what he really means is forced selling is when the bubble pops. Sure, forced selling only happens when you need cash. The problem here is not usually that there's no margin happening and people are like, you know what, I'd like to buy a hamburger, so I'm going to sell a few shares of my stock. No, it's that people are levered 10 times, or in Coinbase's case, 50 times. And the forced selling happens because their financier says, give us some money now. It's the MicroStrategy stuff, which I don't even know if we want to talk about on this episode. We didn't talk about that. It's like ruin is happening. I just don't. His point here is, I don't know, not super convincing to me.
No, like here. This is why I don't think it's most shocking. I bring it up because I do think it's, in my mind, incredibly obvious and what isn't discussed enough. Because what is discussed is, let's look at this valuation metric and how that valuation metric compared to 2000, 1929, whatever. And that is a proxy for the state of things. It is the proxy for the froth, but it isn't the reason why the stock is going to go down. It isn't why, if you take the same thing, let's go to the quote unquote real economy and take housing. We discussed this before here. The price of housing is not a reason why someone would sell their house necessarily. It's because they might have to sell their house because they need money. So like if you look at, or it's because if you go back to the 2008, it's because they were over leveraged on their home and someone else forced them to sell the house. So voluntary, involuntary, but is the need for cash. I don't think it's shocking at all. And I think it's quite obvious, but it's important, I think, for folks to remember that's usually what precipitates any sort of stock market bubble or otherwise, is the need for cash.
So the reason our average listener has made tons of money in stocks over the past 5 years is because other investors have been finding money, whether that's with debt or some other means, to bid up the stocks that they own. And hopefully they own index funds, to be honest. When the money spigot for these other individuals runs out, and they can run out for 1,000 ways.
That's right.
That's when the pullback happens. Things still feel pretty fragile to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like when there's been a pullback recently, it's been like a very significant, very turbulent pullback.
Yeah, it's aggressive real quick.
It's like, who is forced to sell right now? Because the news is the exact same as the news yesterday, right? Gosh, I'm just ready for it. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah. So you didn't seem that interested in that. I do think it's still an important point. The 80% of the way through the bubble thing, you can throw that out. That's whatever. Who knows about any of that? But the point that it is cash that drives the market. And when that cash is being called in or is needed by someone is what can drive the market in the opposite direction. That is an important point. And from what you were just saying, the fact that there's like the fragility that exists, why there's hardcore pullback sometimes, to me shows that there are people that are living on the edge when it comes to the market. I'm not talking about everyday market.
Yeah,
I'm not going back to but when you're like, oh, there might not be a 0.25% cut next month, and therefore I'm going to sell 10% of my holdings. You're like, why was that? Like the thing that sent you over there.
I already read a few of the crypto diary posts of, I used to worth $10 million and I'm now worth zero. And it's like, this was a month ago when things pulled back like 5%. Mm-hmm. It's just like, just flabbergasted that your portfolio could be that fragile. But clearly it is.
It is. All right, listener mail?
Listener mail.
Okay.
Hit that jingle.
They fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. Fight, 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 fight. The Skippy and Doogles Show.
Wall Street Journal piece. Thank you for sending this in, Jonathan. The untold story of Charlie Munger's Who the heck is Charlie Munger?
Harry Potter.
Yeah, it does sound like a Harry Potter. The untold story of Charlie Munger's final years. I would sum up this whole piece in saying that Charlie worked up until nearly the hour that he passed away at 99 years old. It names some of the things that he did up until that point. And if I have the capacity, I'm not even doing, because there's like no chance I'm doing the things that he's doing at this point. There's like no chance of that. But even having the capacity to do it, I think is pretty interesting, some of the stuff that they throw out here.
It was a fun piece for sure. I wish I would have known. Anytime in the last 15 years, if you like basically knock on Munger's door, he's going to bring you in and give you some seed candy and become your best friend. And this is amazing. There's a few like really heartwarming stories in here, but one is something along the lines of, at my age, you either make new friends or you don't have friends.
I love that.
It's so good because it's totally true. I see it with all the older folks in my life that like their friends are dying or their friends are in such significant health struggles that they don't get to see them nearly as much. And so that perspective is what I would take away from the piece. And it just brings the biggest smile to my face. Like you have to be open to, there's at 87 or something, he's making friends with a 17-year-old and sending him to quote unquote Munger University, which means come hang out with me because I'm bored.
Yeah. And I will teach you the ways.
And I might write you $1 billion check. Like it's so much fun.
Yeah. There's this other, to me, this is heartwarming. They were talking about Charlie and Warren in the later years and saying that they didn't collaborate nearly as much as they did when they were younger. And partially, according to this, like partially because they couldn't hear each other. Like, it was just hard to communicate. So I'm going to read this. They would scream to each other, says Whitney Jackson, the wife of Munger's grandson and a frequent visitor to Munger's home in his last years. It was likely meant to be confidential, but anyone within a mile's radius could hear them. I can picture that. I can just picture it. I also like the fact that it says when Charlie went to the hospital at the end, and he could feel that it was the end, he asked his family to leave the room so he could call Warren and say goodbye. Who knows what happened in that conversation, but I just picture how special that conversation is. I mean, these folks, for the last 50 years of their lives, they've been so central to one another, whether it's a day-to-day central or just like an aggregate central, just like a really special combo.
I mean, I heard that one. I just happened to be in Los Angeles at the time, like 5 miles away, and I could hear him yelling. No, sorry for the poorly timed joke there. Agreed. It's cool that he at least had the ability to say goodbye in that way. He seemed, based on everything I've read of his last few days, he seemed very aware of what was happening and what time it was. And I would hope that was comforting. You know, it kind of got to tie up his last affairs.
I wonder, how Charlie's famous for saying, tell me where I'm going to die and I just won't go to that place. Some version of that.
Yeah.
You think at some point they said it's whatever the LA hospital he ended up with, and he's like, oh, crap. Well, where else am I going to go?
No, I remember reading just after his death, there was some sort of some joke on that, and he was like, well, I guess I'm going there anyway. Like, he knew that was the spot. Because when he pulled up to get checked in for the last time, the nurse comes over and says, like, what's wrong with you? How are you feeling? And he says, I'm dying. I'm here to die.
Yeah,
he knew what was happening.
It's Charlie, man.
He's
almost
such a
100
good guy.
years.
So then, I mean, the other point that I think was kind of interesting in the article is he's over there buying stocks that I had researched. This is so funny. Consol Energy. I almost bought this thing back in 2023 when he was
Coal.
Yeah, coal. Yeah. If it's a good enough deal, it's a good enough deal. So who knew Munger was out there buying, terrible companies? But he was.
He was.
He doubled his money on it, so good for him.
I don't think he knew, though.
Well,
Sadly.
Here's the deal. They talk about a couple of specific investments there, and he made like $50 million. And I think that's worth a moment to pause and reflect. I assume everyone that listens to the show has an investing account and can remember the first time they deposited in that investing account. And for most people, it's probably a couple $100 or something. And then if you have a long and fruitful life of investing, literally on your last days, you can make, the average person probably isn't going to make 50 million on an investment, but it's like so many magnitudes of what you scrape together for the first.
Because he'd been investing for 80 years. It's to your point around like a reason that was possible is because it's 80 years of compounding. That's wild, absolutely wild. I was signing up for some service recently. I don't remember what it was, but it was in the last couple of weeks. You know, they have those security questions, like what was the name of your first pet, whatever.
Yeah, I'm
going through the questions to choose one, and one of the questions was, "What was the first stock you ever bought?" I was like, I've never seen that question. Like, is this targeted for me? Did I choose that question?
Does not exist.
Yes.
People don't buy stocks.
I chose that question. I will not give you the answer, but I chose that question.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Well, thanks for the listener mail. Charlie is truly one of a kind.
All right, is that it? You got anything else?
No, that's it. So, by popular demand from Doogles, we will do a Cyber Monday sale here. Check out skippydoogles.supercast.com if you want to support the show. That's always meaningful for us. And we will do our year-end portfolio reviews. My portfolio has been turbulent, let me tell you. My quantitative portfolio, goodness. I still don't know how the year's going to end up. And for you hold one stock, right? It's been a pretty good year.
It has little friends that it like invites to the party. But
has a few friends. Yeah.
Yeah. But every day this year matters. Like anything could happen in the next 30 days.
Yeah.
Anything could happen.
I'm sure my portfolio, we're in December now, right? My portfolio could easily be up or down 10% from where it is today, based on how crazy things have been.
Easily. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
We'll talk to you next week.